All right, can everybody see that screen?
Yes.
Yes, perfect, perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Looks very familiar, I guess, to everybody so far. Okay, so welcome again. I'm Adam Bolt. If you didn't already know, this is for the Gold Coast Dive and Snorkel Group. It's been a 4-part series on GoPro and how we get the most from it. So we've already talked about myself. We've gone over how to avoid disasters and the settings we've used on our GoPro. Last week we looked at framing, composition, filming techniques and equipment. And tonight is a good one. We're talking about light, color correction and video editing techniques. So hopefully this all sort of comes together as a nice little package so you can sort of see how you can go from taking your photos to making something that looks really good. So lighting, it's probably the most important part of taking photos and videos. Without light, we've got nothing. Some of this section here is going to be fairly technical. So after I finish each slide, I'm going to stop so I can take questions, because it can be a little bit confusing for people if you haven't sort of like studied photography before. So light, what types of light are we dealing with when we're diving? The number one light source is going to be the sun. So that's going to be our main light source. So with the sun, we need to consider where the sun is during the day and understand how it affects our images. And I'll discuss that further in the next few slides. Then we have external lights, and here we're pretty much talking about dive lights. And dive lights will help the quality of our photos and videos because at depth we lose colors and light. So the deeper we dive, the less color we see and the less light that we have to capture our images. And dive lights will bring back that loss of color and the light for us. So the extra light also allows us to shoot at a lower ISO, which then helps improve our image quality with our GoPro. And dive lights can also be used if we've got a backlit subject that's in shadow or on dull lighting conditions. So the dive light will fill in the shadow side of a subject or help make that subject look brighter. Okay, just had a message there. Bring it up for a second. Just bear with me a second. I'm just making this chat box a bit bigger for myself. Does anybody know if there's anybody trying to get in at the moment? I can't see anybody. Oh, there we go. Admit. There we go. Cool. All right. So let me just get through that. So that first part of that video, you can see as I'm coming up through this bit of coral rock area here, you can see I've got dive lights here on my dive rig. So it's actually, those lights are now lighting up the rock here on the side to my left. And if you look directly in front, you'll see the rock in front. It's completely in shadow there. So you can see how a dive light will actually fill in the shadows when you don't have light shining directly on it. And actually, if we look in the background here, can you see that puffer fish? Is that the angriest looking puffer fish you've ever seen? And the second part of the video, we saw the light now is directly in front of me. So if I didn't have dive lights on, these fish would look pretty much like a silhouette in the background. But because they're nice and reflective as well, we get this really nice specular highlights on them. And you can tell that they're very reflective because if you look at the underside of this bottom row, they're actually picking up the rock colors underneath. So they're very reflective fish. So the dive lights did a really good job of bringing the extra color out on the fish there. Okay, so another type of light that we've got we can use is what's called reflective light. So this is where sunlight bounces or reflects off surfaces. So the brighter the surface, the more light that is going to be reflected. So think white or metallic surfaces. And it can also be used as a fill light when you don't have dive lights. So think white, like a white sandy seabed. So here's a demonstration of what reflective light does. Okay, so that first part of the video, you can see that the sun is directly behind me. Now, the reason why you can still see my face here is because directly in front of me, I have the Burley Lifesaving Club, and that's got big glass panels on the front. So, and there's also the sand on the beach. So all that light is bouncing off the glass and bouncing back into my face. So that's reflective light. That's why you can see my, I'm not completely in shadow there. Now, as I dive down, now I don't have anything reflecting in my face. The sun's still behind me, but you can see my face, it's completely black. There's no detail to it. And now I'm down the bottom where we've got the white sand, and you can see all that sand is now bouncing some light back up into my face. So now I've got some detail back in my face, and you can tell where the light's coming from. It's up here in the left-hand corner, and we can follow the shadow through. So it comes across and down in front of me here. So as I said, all this sand here is now reflecting light back up into my face. So as I said, if you don't have dive lights, look for something that might be able to help reflect back light into your subjects, because that's going to really help, give you much better image quality at the end of the day. All right, exposure. So this is really important. Okay, so creating our photos and videos requires a correct exposure based on our lighting conditions. Now, we control our exposure with what is called the exposure triangle. And that triangle is made up of 3 components. You've got shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Now, if we change one of those settings, it affects how the other settings, if you change one, you've got to change something else to still keep that exposure balanced and correct. So that's what our go back again. So that's what our exposure triangle looks like. So we've got ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And we generally talk in stops of light. So one stop of light will either half or double the amount of light. So you can see here ISO 100, 200, 400. So one stop of light doubles it to 200, double again, that goes to 400. Shutter speed 1/250th, 1/25. That's halving the light that way. So that's how a stop of light works. And then you have your aperture, which does the same thing. So shutter speed. Shutter speed determines how long the shutter is open for and to create that exposure. So a high shutter speed will freeze movement. So where, like that shot there, I've probably used the shutter speed of around about 1/1000th of a second, and it's captured a nice sharp image of the guy jumping the wave. And a slower shutter speed can create blur. So here I've got the GoPro mounted in the car. It's not moving while it's in the car, but everything else that's moving while the car's moving will look blurred, which is how we get that streaky light effect. And for that one, I'm probably using a shutter speed of 2 seconds. Now ISO, it's also called film speed, back in the good old days of film camera. And on a GoPro, we want a really low ISO. So a lower ISO of 100 gives a much cleaner and sharper image than using ISO 1600 and above on a GoPro. Aperture. Now, GoPros have a fixed aperture of approximately f2.8. That's also called an f-stop. Having a fixed aperture on the GoPro means that we can only alter the exposure by altering the shutter speed. And shutter speed is also affected by our frame rate that we set on our video mode, or altering our ISO. So remember back to that exposure triangle. So if I look down the bottom here, our aperture is pretty much set at f2.8. It's pretty wide, it lets a lot of light in, but we can't change that. So we can only change our variables of ISO and shutter speed on our GoPro. Now, before we talk about shutter speeds, etc., I need to talk quickly about refresh rates on our GoPros. So there are 2 refresh rates on our GoPro. You've got 50 Hertz or 60 Hertz. So if our GoPro is set at 50 Hertz, we'll see shutter speeds or frame rates of 24, 25, 50, 100, and 200. And if it's set at 60 Hertz, you'll see 24, 30, 60, 120, and 240 frames per second. In Australia, we use PAL, which has a refresh rate of 50 Hertz, and that gives us
frame rates that we can use of 200, 150 and 25 frames per second. If we change the refresh rate by swiping down, swiping left, and then going into general settings, swiping to the bottom and hitting anti-flicker, you'll change it to 60 Hz. This now gives you frames per second of 240, 120, 60 and 30.
So I wanted to put that in basically because I'm generally talking about like 60 frames per second. You're probably looking at it going, I can only get 50 frames per second. And that's how I change mine. I've set mine to 60 Hertz, but if yours is set at 50 Hertz, just leave it as it is. Now, I didn't mention 24 frames per second in that one. It's generally used more for high-end cinematic content. But to be honest, what refresh rate you use doesn't really matter in the day of digital imagery. All the monitors now have automatic refresh rates on them. Now, if you do capture videos and photos, well, more video on multiple devices like phone, drones, etc., or your digital DSLR, try to make sure they are all at the same refresh rate, because what will happen if you get all those videos and they're at different frame rates. Now, if you put them onto a video editor and one's got 50 frames per second and the other one's got 60 frames per second, you'll end up getting basically one of the videos will start to look a bit jittery because it's not at the same frame rate. So always make sure each of your devices you're working with are all set at the same refresh rate. All right, shutter speed and frame rate. So frame rate is also known as frames per second. Now, when we shoot video, we set the resolution, the format or the ratio, and the frame rate. So for myself, I like to shoot my GoPro 9 and 10 and my GoPro 10 and 11 at 5.3K 16:9 format at 60 frames per second. And I shoot the 5.3 basically because I put that onto a 4K video timeline, and that means I've got room to crop the video. And I shoot 16:9 format because that's the one I generally post to YouTube with my videos, and that's the format used for YouTube. And I shoot 60 frames per second because I like to slow my video down in post. So there's the back of a GoPro 10. You can see at the very top you've got all the ratios. Now if you had a GoPro 11, you will also see 8.7 and the 4.3 as well. The next one down is all your resolutions you can shoot in. And the very bottom is all the frames per second that you can set your GoPro. So if you want ultra slow-mo, you'll shoot at 240 frames per second. But at the same time, that'll limit the resolution. So you might find it can only shoot at like 1080p at 240 frames per second. So as I said, I generally set mine at 5.3K 60 16:9. Now, to make sure our videos don't look blurry from camera movement, our GoPro will try and maintain a shutter speed of double our frame rate. So you can imagine I've got my GoPro. It's not so bad when I'm taking a photo because I'm trying to keep it steady, but if I'm doing video, now the camera is always moving around. So if my shutter speed's too slow, it's going to start looking blurred, way too blurred. So by doubling the frame rate, it makes sure that we get a much cleaner image. So we set our GoPro at 60 frames per second. It will then try and capture a frame of 1/25 of a second to reduce that blur. Now, what frame rate we play, what frame rate we set our GoPro at plays a big part on the image quality, especially when we're diving at depth. So before I go on to this little section here, does anybody have any questions? Because it's, like I said, it can be a little bit complicated. No, I can't see any other questions there. Nobody has any questions at the moment? Make sense? Hopefully. Okay, so here's an example. So at the surface, so before we go below water, a correct exposure could be ISO 200, 1/500 of a second, and a frame rate of 240 frames per second. Now, we lose light at depth, so I can lose up to 3 stops of light if I dive down to 20 meters. So to now maintain that same exposure, because I've lost 3 stops of light, I'm going to have to change something, that exposure triangle. So now I have to change my ISO to 1600. So 200 to 400 is 1 stop, that's doubling the light. 400 to 800, that's another stop, that's 2 stops. 800 to 1600, that's 3 stops. So you can see how that doubles, and that's how you change your, well, that's how the cameras are going to start exposing for your scene. The alternative is if I don't change the ISO, I have to change my shutter speed. So if I'm going from losing 3 stops of light, I need to go from 500, 250, 125 to 60, so 3 stops of light. And at the same time, I'll also have to reduce the frame rate to match. Okay, so any questions on that section so far? All good?
Could you just repeat the frame rate again? I was just trying to get, I got the ISO, but just the frame rate.
That I set it on for my GoPro.
Yeah, just on the previous slide again, just the very last point.
Oh, okay, yeah. So basically, like if I was going to dive at depth and I kept my frame rate at 240 frames per second, it's going to need a shutter speed of like 500th of a second because it needs double that frame rate. So you're generally going to find, especially once you get past about 20-25 meters, that if you're shooting even at 60 frames per second, you're probably not going to get enough light to the sensor. You really want to change that right down to as low as you can. So a frame rate of 30 frames per second, so it can still shoot at a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes, I've got it that time.
Yep.
Excuse me, Adam. So do you do that while you're diving?
No, I will set that before I do my dive. So if I know I'm going to go, I generally leave it at 60 frames per second for my on my GoPro because I'm just generally doing free diving. But if I was going to do a deep dive, I would probably leave it at 30 frames per second. Or if I was going to use 60 frames per second, I'd make sure I had dive lights with me to maintain the light that I need. Okay, so next section, white balance, or color temperature.
And before you move on,
oh yeah, sorry, yep.
Why does the shutter need to be twice the frame rate?
It just basically it can go lower than that, but the minimum we can go. So the minimum, if I'm setting mine at 60 frames per second, the minimum it can go is 1/60th of a second because it can't go any lower than that. Like it just, if I shoot any slower than that, it means it just doesn't fit into 60 frames per second. But it does try to maintain double the shutter speed because, as I said, we've got camera movement, and if I leave it too low, it's going to get blur. So by doubling the frame rate, it just makes it look smoother as we sort of pan around and move the camera. That's all it's doing. And looks like somebody's trying to get in. And any other questions there? Frame rate will influence exposure to a point. So if it all depends on how much light's coming into the camera. So if I've got a frame rate that's at 240 frames per second and I've got a lot of light, then I can still use a higher shutter speed. But as I said, if I dive down to 20 meters, I've lost 3 stops of light. So the GoPro is going to have to either change its ISO, which then gives us a really cruddy image once we get past 800 ISO, or we have to change our frame rate, and we can't do that we can't do ISO and frame rate. They got as I said, it's that exposure triangle. We've got to, if we change one, we've got to change something else. It's a little bit complicated, but I'll kind of move on from there because there's a fair bit to get through. But if you still have questions about that, we'll go back to that later on. So on land, it's very easy to control our white balance. Our main light source is the sun, and its white balance doesn't vary much during the day. So daylight white balance is approximately 5200 to 5600 Kelvin. And white balance can vary depending on weather conditions. So if it's cloudy and we've set our white balance at 5200 K, we'll get a bit of a bluish tinge. And to compensate, we can change our white balance manually to a warmer 6500 K. Or we can just use auto white balance, which does the this color shift automatically for us. And in the old days, like if you were using a film camera, we would actually attach a warming filter to remove that blue cast. So here's a diagram of our color temperature. So midday sun's around about this 5000. You've got a white light there. And if it's an overcast, you can see we start getting blue light. And if we get the early sunrise sunsets, we get more of that warmer light. So generally, we're going to be shooting when the sun's up in this area here, around about the 5000 to 6000 K sunlight. Now on a modern GoPro, they have scene detection. So from GoPro 6 and up, they all have scene detection, and GoPro has the latest, I guess, of that version. And this does a really good job of selecting the correct white balance based on the subject that it's recording. So that's a frame grab that I've taken from a video, just using auto white balance, and the colors are spot on straight out of the camera, just using auto white balance. Now, this is where it gets interesting. White balance, color temperature when we're diving. So above water, we see the full color spectrum, and it's made up of different wavelengths of light, so which we can see there. And sunlight acts completely differently in water. So water absorbs the light wavelengths at different rates. The longest wavelengths are absorbed first, so reds go first, followed by orange, yellow, green, and then you lose your blues. So those colors disappear underwater at the same order that they appear in the color spectrum. And here's a really good chart that shows you that. So even at 5 meters depth, we will see a noticeable loss of red. And then at 8 meters, we'll start losing orange. At 14 meters, we'll lose a little yellow. And at around about 23 meters, we've lost green. So below sort of 30 meters, then we've just left with blue. So that's where we really need dive lights. And you can also see this chart here, it shows that it starts getting darker as well. So like I said, not only do we lose color, light, sorry, not only do we lose color, but we also lose light, and we also lose contrast because there's not so much light, so we don't have as much, I guess, difference between highlights and shadows, so we'd lose contrast as well. So the quality of light really diminishes the deeper we go. And light changes both vertically and horizontally in the water. So not only does it change going down, you know, as it gets deeper, but it also changes in front of us. So especially like if the subjects are further away from us, we'll definitely see a change in light. We'll see that loss of color, light, and contrast. So when we're diving, we want to keep our subjects as close to us for the best color, light, and contrast on that subject. Okay, so now here's a really good example. I want you to pay a particular attention to this video. So look at the subjects that are nice and close to the camera, and then look off into the distance. Look how the color changes the further I guess the way the light and the colors change the further away from the camera. And you also see a section where I dive up onto a turtle. When I'm further away, it looks kind of blue-green, and as soon as I get nice and close, the colors come back in. Okay, so did everybody see how that changes the color there? It's really important to try and keep that subject as close as possible to get the best quality images for yourself. And before I go to the next slide, any other questions from anybody? Nobody needs to be let in? Nope, all good. And water clarity and overcast days also affect the quality of our light when we're diving as well. So if it's an overcast day, that means we get less light to the GoPro, which means we have to use a higher ISO. And if it's a wavy sort of day as well, that means the light gets reflected everywhere, so there's less light getting through below the surface. All right, next one, white balance versus filters. Now, to use or not to use colored dive filters, that is the question that I get asked almost every single day. Okay, so underwater filters, they do not add in color. They only subtract other wavelengths. So you may see a small improvement with a dive filter, but don't expect miracles. Like, filters can only do so much for you. The colored dive filter also reduces the amount of light to your GoPro sensor. So if I put a red dive filter on, I can actually lose another 2 stops of light. So to compensate, we will need to shoot at a higher ISO or drop our shutter speed, just like we were doing when we were diving for a correct exposure. So think back to that exposure triangle again. So now if I've gone down to 20 meters of depth, I've lost 3 stops there. And if I add that dive filter on to compensate for that loss of reds and oranges and that sort of thing, there's another 2 stops of light. So that's 5 stops of light that I've lost now. So now I need to go from maybe ISO 100 to an ISO of 3200, which is 5 stops. And did I get a question asked there? Let me just have a quick look. No. So yeah, I need to change 5 stops of light from that scenario there. Now this isn't so bad if we've got a nice, modern DSLR. It still gives us a nice clean image at 3200 ISO. But a GoPro image at 3200 ISO looks absolutely rubbish. It just looks cruddy and doesn't look good at all. So that's why I personally don't recommend dive filters for the GoPro and to use auto white balance instead. And if you're going to do some, if you're serious and you're going to do deep dives, then definitely get in, yourself a set of good diving lights as well. Now, the only issue with auto white balance is that the white balance can shift. So you may see a color shift between blue and green hues. You might be filming it and it looks nice and blue here, and as soon as I shift around, it can change to a green color. And we want somebody to come in. And another example could be, has anybody ever shot clownfish when they're nice and bright and orange and they're in a nice sort of orange coral, sort of the anemone, and the colors will go sort of a bit weird color? And that's because it's trying to compensate for that extra orange it's seen, it's taking it out. So that's the only downfall with auto white balance. It can get fooled sometimes. Okay, so that was a prime example where I used auto white balance. When it was first filming, there was nothing really for it to sort of, I guess, as a scene recognition. It was just water in front of me, so it sort of had a greenish tinge. But as soon as I came down lower and it started seeing the fish and the divers and the rocks and the sand below, it sort of had more of a better scene recognition and gave me a really good white balance. And you could see how those colors just changed just by dropping 4 or 5 meters and turning the angle of the camera. Now, we can set on manual or locked white balance on our GoPro to stop that color shift. Now with a GoPro, we are limited to what white balance presets we have. And these are the presets we've got. So we've got 2300K, 3200K, 4000K, etc. Now, unfortunately, there is no manual white balance setting for underwater on our GoPros. So there is an alternative. I've spoken about it before. GoPro Labs firmware allows us to lock our auto white balance so you don't get that color shift. Now, if you're a scuba diver, I've tried this now and it works amazingly well. So if you're a scuba diver, I really recommend that you consider putting the GoPro Labs firmware on your GoPro. If you want a hand with that, come and talk to me. I'm more than happy to go through that with you because it does an amazing job. And here's an example of locking that white balance underwater when I was diving at about 8 meters deep. And you'll notice that there is no color shift and we get the correct white balance for our scene. And that was straight off the GoPro like that. So as I said, I was very impressed when I first tried the auto white balance on this one. Okay, any questions on that? GoPro Labs firmware, I will try it then. Cool. Yeah, and so if you want to try it, yeah, and you're not sure how to do it, just come and talk to me. You can also get the actual app on your phone as well, so you can actually set it so you can do all the settings on your phone, and you get your GoPro, and it's like a QR scanner. It just puts all the settings straight on your camera for you. Now, why is white balance so important? Well, here's 3 examples of what locking our white balance does and how it affects our colors from being at the surface to depth. All right, so this first example, my white balance is set at 6000K, which is a warm daylight, and it's the correct white balance for when we're at the top of the surface. Now, with the correct white balance, we'll get the colors will look natural and correct for that surface. However, you'll see in this video, when I'm at 10 meters deep, it looks, because we've lost all that red and orange already, the video is going to look really blue. And as I get closer to the surface, that red and orange come back in, the colors look normal again. So you can definitely see in that one when I'm down deep with, when I'm diving deep there with Dave, it looks really blue. And as we're sort of coming back up to the top, even that sunlight coming through looks bluey green. And as soon as we get closer to the top, the nice warm light starts coming back through again. So that's what happens when we lock our white balance there. Now this one I've actually used the auto white balance and then locked it using the lab's firmware. So it's now the correct white balance for the depth that I'm diving at, and you'll see what happens when I actually come up to the surface. And you can see there that when I get to the surface, it's now got that magenta red look because it's when I'm further down deep and I've locked the white balance, it's trying to remove the green and that greenish blue that look in the water. And as soon as I get back to the top, all that color spectrum is coming back in, and now I've got too much red magenta in the white balance. So by using that auto white, using the auto white balance lock, it's almost like putting a dye filter on there, but I don't get that loss of light by doing that. This last one, it's where I've got dive lights. The dive lights are balanced for 6000K, and then I've actually got my GoPro, the white balance set at 6000K. So both my dive light and the GoPro are matched at the color temperature. Okay, so there you'll notice that the subject is the correct white balance once the dive lights are actually lighting the subject. So now, as I said, if the GoPro is matched to the white balance of the main light source, so here we've got the dive light and my GoPro are matched, we get a correct white balance. If I've got my GoPro white balance matched for the light at depth, it's the correct white balance. If I've got the GoPro matched for the correct white balance at the surface, then we get the correct white balance. So I know that's a bit complicated. It's hard to sort of put this all into one slide and make it easy for people to understand, but any questions on that one? Okay, so how do you match the GoPro white balance to the light at depth? So there I'm just using the auto white balance, but with the lab's firmware on it, I can actually then, as soon as I start recording, it actually locks the white balance, so it doesn't shift once I'm down at that depth. There's another question I need to dive. I'm not sure what that means. All right, so I'll go into the next one. So quality of light. Now, if we're using our GoPro underwater, we want as much light as possible for the best results. The amount of light that can penetrate the surface depends on the weather. So as I mentioned before, cloudy days reduce the amount of sunlight, which reduces our light quality. Surface conditions, so choppy water reflects more sunlight than calm water, which reduces the light quality. Obviously water clarity, so if you've got dirty or murky water, that reduces our light quality, and the time of day as well. So if you're shooting right on sunrise, you're going to get a lot of light reflecting off the surface compared to the sun being directly above us. So the best conditions for capturing underwater photos and videos are on a sunny cloud-free day, on a calm day with a flat surface, in very clean water with high visibility. And if you've got 20+ meters of visibility, that's a really good thing, because you don't want to be filming in water that looks like this. That was not my greatest dive. That was on the Scottish Prince, and it was terrible. And another thing to mention there as well is the depth that we're diving at. So if we're in shallower water, we're also going to get better quality video as well. And try to shoot between the hours of 9 AM and 3 PM. That's, the sun's a bit higher, we're going to get more light. That's a guide only. It's not, it's not absolute, but those hours definitely give us better light. And as I said, if we shoot too early, we have a lack of light, which then requires a higher ISO, which then degrades our video quality. So what we want to do is shoot with the sun behind us, and if and have it also have it at an angle and also to our side. So we don't want it directly behind us. We want it above and to our side. So this will give us the best colors, contrast, and depths in our images. So if we put a bit of angle, we now get shadow, and the shadow actually gives us that sort of good contrast of the highlights and the shadows. And then it also gives us sort of what we look at the image, and it gives us depth as well. We can sort of get a better understanding of, you know, where everything is, I guess. Okay, so that's a really good example of like when you've got the light and you've got good visibility, you've got great light, you've got the sun in the right position, you're going to get really nice looking videos. And if you've got terrible looking water, the sun's in front of you, you know, you've got the sun in the wrong position, it completely changes the look of the quality of your light and your videos. All right, we're going to get into a bit of the editing side now. Is there any questions on any of that? Did that make sense, hopefully, for everybody? No questions? Move on? Cool. All right, editing. The GoPro Quick app. Actually, I do like this app. A lot of people don't, but once you get the hang of it, it's a really great tool that lets us quickly edit our GoPro photos and videos. So you can select a whole bunch of your photos and videos, put them into the Quick app, and it will create an automated video edit for us. And it selects the best bits of your video and photos to play in that edit. Now, it doesn't always get it correct, but we can adjust that later on.
Select the videos you want. You can do a whole section by hitting the tick icon up the top and then clicking on the checkbox to select all images from that day. And you can add in other photos by just tapping them as well. Then we'll go to the Media Edit tab. And there you go, it has created an automated video without me doing anything that syncs to the beat of the music.
So you can see I just dragged and dropped and it makes a video straight away for us. And as I said, that video automatically syncs to the beat of the music. Now we can actually use GoPro's own music that's in there, or we can even add our own music to there.
To change the music from our edit, we go into the studio section where you'll see your edits. You can click on it. I'll just push pause for a second so you can hear me talk. We hit the edit button down the bottom, and along the bottom you'll see the timeline, themes and music. So we click on music. Now we can actually play, and as I click on different songs, they'll automatically load into the video for us. Now I can actually add in our own. You'll see a music icon to the very right there. Click on that, and you have now a selection of all the GoPro music that's available to us. But you can also click on My Music on the top right, and then you can add in your own song. And that's how you can change the music to your video clips that are automated.
Okay, and once we've got the music in there, we can also adjust the length of that music. So if we want to make it shorter for maybe a TikTok or Instagram, or as long as possible to upload to YouTube, we can do that as well.
Once we've selected our music, you can hit the tab that says length. And now you can see you can change the length of your video. You can make it shorter so it's suitable for Instagram, or if you want to make a much longer video, you can slide it across to the very length of the song. And that's how you can adjust the clip length of your video.
And in that app as well, we have what's called different themes. So imagine the themes, they're like little packs filled with different transitions and different effects. So which theme you use for your video will transform the look of your video.
Okay, so we don't like the actual theme that's been playing for our video edit. I can pause that, I can go into edit, and down the bottom you'll see the button that says themes. So if I scroll through this a little bit, and if I click on any of these, it'll change the style of the transitions and the look of the video as well. If I click on this one, changes it again, different style of lettering there, different transitions. And they all come out looking very different to each other. And that's basically how you can add your own personal touch, I guess, to your videos with this automated video edits.
And you can also add in extra titles to your video as well.
Now with the Quick app, we can actually add in extra titles to it. So you can see HMS Liberty comes up, so I'll just pause it for a second. If I click on that, hit the pencil icon to edit it, I can now tap on that and change that to whatever I want. So I can do GoPro edit and hit the tick. And you can change the length of how long that's on there for regular, short or long. Regular is generally the best one. And if I scroll along, I can actually hit the plus icon, and you'll see that you can add in another photo or video if you want to, or you can add another text file there as well. So we hit the text one. Oops, sorry, hit the wrong one. Do it again, text. And I can go, wow. Okay, so that would add that in. Hit done. And you'll see that there's a text file there now. So when I played the video from the beginning, so yeah, if you want to add in extra text files during the video, you can do that with this app as well.
Now, I didn't show it as well, but you can also do, if you click the edit or the little pencil icon on each of those frames, you can actually add a text file inside that frame as well. And it allows you to control the volume of each clip. So you can have the volume off for the clip, have it mixed so that you get the song and also the sound of the clip, or you just have it on so it's the sound of the clip and the music is reduced in the background.
Now at the moment with the video that we've got, or the video edit, it's playing the song, but we can't actually hear the sound of us, like the snorkel sound of the regulator, sorry, under the water. So if we want to add a bit of sounds into the videos from our video clip, we make sure we're on the timeline one. We can click on the video that we want to add sound to. If we hit the pencil icon and we scroll across, you'll see the one that says volume. At the moment it's selected on mute, and if we hit mix, it'll be 80% of the sound of the video itself and 20% music. And if we hit boost, that increases the sound of the actual video itself and turns the music down to 5%. Depending on what you want, like mute is basically if you just want the music to play, mix if you want a little bit of ambient sound, boost is really generally if you're going to be talking and you want that part of the video to stand out. So you have the ability to change it to suit the mood of the video that you're trying to create.
And the app also allows you to reposition clips, and you can also delete as well.
So you might have started playing this automated video and going, oh, I don't like the position that clip's in, or I want to delete that clip. So you can do that quite easily. If I tap and hold one of the icons, you can see I can drag it up and delete it if I want to. If I select the bottom section of it, I can actually drag it across and put it wherever I want. And if I hit the plus icon, then I can add in another file from my phone itself, from inside the app, or from the GoPro cloud. And that's how you can continue to create your video from the Quick app.
And one thing I didn't mention there, you can also duplicate that clip as well. So you might find a section where you want to cut a section out and then duplicate it so that you have another section which has another part of the video that you want to show. Now we can also edit each clip manually, so we can reframe, change the speed, make exposure adjustments as well.
Okay, this is how I do a quick edit to a video file from a GoPro. I'll click on the video that I want. On the bottom left you'll see the pen icon. If you hit the one next to it, that is a section so you can get a frame grab if you want to. The next one does your video edit. You can also add a highlight on the next one by hitting that little key icon there. And then you've got the delete one on the far right. So we'll hit the pencil icon. And here we've got clip, lens, frame, filter, and speed. So if I hit the clip, I can actually shorten the length of the clip if I want to just cut out some of it. I can do that. The lens, it doesn't work for a GoPro 10 and below, but if you had a GoPro 11 and you shot an 8x7, you'd actually be able to change that lens. And you'll see the different editing tabs there. Now, that lens is also in the same section that is in frame, so you'll see that its lens is still there. It's grayed out. But here I can hit the fit. So at the moment this video is shot at 4:3, and I can change it to other formats. And for myself, I'll change it to 16:9, and because I've shot it in 4:3, I can actually reframe. So generally, if I'm doing a dive and I'm going to an area I haven't dived before, I'll shoot in 4:3 so that it gives me room to recrop later. So I'll click that. And the next one is filter. Now I'm not going to show filter, I'm going to leave that to very last. Speed. Okay, so I've shot this at 60 frames per second, so I can actually slow the video down by half to make it still look and play smoothly on a 30 frames per second timeline. So I can hit the plus icon and I can slide it all the way through to the very end, or I can just select which part I want to slow down and hit that. Now if I hit the pause icon next to it, I can actually then add a freeze frame section to it and make that as long as I want. I don't generally use that because, as you see, when it plays, you're playing, and then it just pauses. It can be used for some effect, but I don't generally use it. So we can hit that and delete it. And if I hit the timeline again, it brings up that section down the bottom, so I can slow it down. So I can slow it all the way down to 30 times its original speed, or speed it up by 30 times its original speed. And if I click on one, it brings it back to normal speed. And that's how you can change the speed of your video. The next one is the adjustment tab. So here I can do an auto balance of it. Generally it does, it's a good starting point. On exposure there, if I go to the left, it darkens it, go to the right, it brightens it up, so we can move around to the point we like. Contrast, go to left, it makes it look very flat and dull. And if we go right, it goes much more crunchy in the blacks and the whites there. The vibrance one is for the saturation slider. So to the left it makes it black and white, and to the right makes it overly saturated in colours. So we find a good margin for there, just to adjust it. And probably not too much, just about there. Temperature, if I go to the left, it makes the videos look blue. And if I go to the right, it adds in a warm light to it. So at the moment it's pretty good where it is, so we'll just leave it where it is. Now shadows, if I go to the left, it darkens the shadows, and go to the right, it opens them up. So once again, we don't want to have it looking too open, looks too flat. So we find a good margin for where that is. And then we have the highlights. There's not many highlights here, so if I go to the left, you're not really going to see much. You'll see a little bit of a change in the bubbles. When I go to the far right, they tend to brighten up a bit, so they look quite good if I brighten it up, but generally I'll have the slider slightly down. The sticker button, I'll just go into that quickly too, but there's nothing we can do when we're diving. The GPS doesn't work, so none of those stickers are available to us. And that's how you do a quick edit to a video file from a GoPro.
Okay, and the app also allows us to select parts of the clips that we want to play.
Okay, so I've just paused the video there. What we've just seen there is that first part of the video when it plays through. Okay, so that second cut there doesn't really show anything interesting from the auto sync that it does. So how do we fix that? We hit the edit tab down the bottom. I'll just pause it again so you can hear me talking. If I click on that slide that needs to be edited, I click on that, you'll see a pencil icon. I can click on that, and on the far left bottom you'll see trim. So if I click on trim, you'll see that it's highlighted with the blue auto highlight, and it's got that section there and that section there, which doesn't show anything interesting. So how do we fix that? Well, what we can do is if I tap and hold that, you'll see it goes to green. So I'll do that again. And now I can drag the bars. So I can actually adjust the position of that one for us. I'm going to move that to the end and drag it down, drag it across, drag it a bit more, and drag it to there. And you'll see that depending on where I put those bars, if I drag it out a little bit, it'll extend because it goes to the beat of the song. So I don't want it that long, I want it for about there. And you can see it's kept that first one. So now I've got that bit that's going to play and that bit that's going to play. If I don't like where that position is, I just hit the delete key there and it gets rid of it for us. And I can just add in another section wherever I want and just click, and it adds a section automatically to the beat. And once again, I can just move that to wherever I want within the clip. Okay, just make that a bit shorter, and there we go. Now, if you leave it on auto sync, then every time you make other edits, that's always going to change. So if you don't want that at all, just turn that off. And now you can just in your own beat sections, so I'll select that and I can leave that there. And that's the easiest way to do your edits and keep it so that it doesn't keep moving for you. So if you do use the auto highlight, you can change it, but I find the easiest way is just to take that off and just use the beat sync.
Yeah, so beat sync gives me a lot more control. If I leave it on auto and I've got multiple slides, if I change one slide, it can change the original slide as well. So if I go to turn that off and just use the manual section of it, then every time I make an edit, it doesn't change from slide to slide. Okay, and we can also adjust the format, so we can change the ratio to suit what we're going to be exporting it to. So we can export it at 16:9 or maybe 1:1 for TikTok.
So you're happy with the way the video's been put together, you're happy with the theme, the music, the edits you've done to it, and you're ready to send it out, and you're going, all right, I want to do 16:9 for YouTube, but I might want to change the format for TikTok. So if you hit the edit tab, you can hit format along the bottom there to the right. At the moment it's set for 16:9, so I can export it like that, but if I wanted to change it for maybe 1:1 for TikTok, I can click on that. Now you'll see that there's bars there, and that's already because I've done an edit to those individual videos where they're cropped at 16:9. Now you can see that I've got the white bars, the top and bottom there, and that's because those videos have already been cropped to a 16:9 format. So if I want to get rid of those bars, I have to go back in to the timeline and individually do each one of these, where I hit the frame button, hit that fit. You can see it's 16:9. So if I wanted to match what I'm sending it to TikTok, like the 1:1, I'll have to do that for each frame. If I don't, you'll see that it'll play square there, and when it gets to the next clip, which will be in a second, you'll get those bars back again. So if you want to do that, get rid of the bars, you're going to have to do that individually for each clip, but that's how you can change the format to go for the different platforms you might want to be posting to.
Okay, and lastly, we can save that video at different resolution. So you might want to save it at 4K to upload to YouTube, or we just want to share it with friends, so we might want to reduce it down to 720p. We're ready to now export our video. So if we open up the video file that we've got in the Edit tab, you'll see, let me just pause that for a second. You'll see up at the top right, there's a little box with an arrow going up in it, which is the export one. So we click on that. You can see we can save it to the photos, and here we can adjust the quality of the video that we're saving it and the resolution. So I generally save at 4K, but you can save it all the way down to 720p. So I'll leave it on 4K. I always save it in high quality as well, so that way if I'm going to do any further editing, I've got a lot more detail in the video to work on it for color correction, etc. And I'll save it as HEVC, and that's because it creates a smaller video file, so it takes up less space on your phone or your tablet. We hit continue, and now it starts to render that video out, and it will save it to the Photo Albums app on our mobile device, and from there we can upload it to like the likes of YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Okay, so any questions about the Quick app there that anybody might have? No questions there. So, all right, this is probably the best bit of the app.
Sorry, Adam.
Oh, yes?
Is this all? Sorry, Adam. It's Marky. Is this all on the phone app, or is this on the PC app?
This is
both.
only on the mobile devices, so available on
Okay.
your tablets and your mobile device. The
Okay.
Quick app. Yeah. But if you do have the Quick app, if you've got the subscription, you'll have access to all the filters. And this is the thing that is going to transform your photos. I've left this to last because it's probably the biggest wow factor that you'll get. Okay, so without a doubt, this is the one single tip is going to transform your GoPro photos and videos forever. Okay, so the Quick app has filters built in. So there are a number of filters available in the Quick app. There are filters for adding like an artistic effect, and then there is a whole bunch of filters for color correction. And so those color correction filters will remove color casts that we see in forests, at the beach, or in the snow. Most importantly, for water. Okay, this is the filter that will transform your GoPro underwater photo and video to the next level, and you can thank me later for this one. All right, now if you don't have access to the Quick app, you can also use apps like Dive Plus, which are also there to do color correction to your videos. And I will show you a video in a second, but let me just get through this one. Okay, GoPro Quick app and the filter section. This is like, for me, the holy grail of the Quick app. This will transform your underwater photos and videos straight away. It'll make them look so much better. So at the moment I've already done the filter to it, so I can click on that. Let's not show you that bit. Let's slide right out of that, and we'll just turn off the filter. So there you go. Bang, look at that. It's not a bad image, but it doesn't look great compared to what we had. So what we have here in the filter section, we have a whole bunch of different styles. We've got the essential ones, so you can click on that and you'll put a different color filter to it.
You can do greenery for if you're in the forest, etc. But the one we want is the one that says water. And now you'll see down the bottom, dive, snorkel, surf and underwater. So depending on how you've been shooting with your GoPro, I always shoot with auto white balance, and I find for me that the dive one is the best one. Okay, boom, let's go back, let's do that again. All right, so turn that off. That's what we originally had. Go to the water, hit dive, boom, colors look amazing already. Then we have this slider here. We can dial in as much of that filter as we want. So for me, I always look for the whites and other colors like blacks and grays to try and get as much of the green and the magenta blues out, so that it looks as close as possible to natural colors, which is just about there. And then we can hit tick, and that's it. That's how I get my colors with the GoPro Quick app on my underwater videos.
So did anybody know about that that part of the app before, that how you can transform the colors of your videos? So a lot of you complain, I see, you know, oh, my video looks really green. Use that filter and bang, your photos and videos are going to look so much better straight away. So any questions on that one for you guys?
Just quick question. Does CapCut have the same thing?
No, not like that. No, that's pretty much what the app is doing, is adding a LUT, so a lookup table. So it's adding like a, it's hard to explain, but it's basically doing its own adjustment to all the coloring on the file itself. So yeah, you can do something similar in the CapCut, but you would have to actually have the actual LUT to do that, but I don't know where you would get those from. Okay, so the last one is we're going to look at doing CapCut. So now the GoPro Quick app is limited to what it can do. Sometimes we need to a little bit more control with our video editing. So this is where we need a proper video editor. Now CapCut is my choice of video editor. It has pretty much like probably 90% of what I would ever require in a video editor. But best of all, it's free, doesn't cost you a thing. And it's also available across platforms, so you can use it for your mobile device. It also has a web editor, and it's available for PC. At this stage, it's not available for Mac, but I know they are working on that one. And if you link into your account, you can actually sync across the web, your mobile device, and your PC as well. And tonight I'm just going to concentrate on the PC version. Now, CapCut is actually made by the people that created TikTok, and the web-based editor and the PC editor are all based around their CapCut mobile editor. And the beauty about that is that it makes using CapCut probably the easiest video editor that I've ever used, and that's why I would recommend it. So you can download CapCut from the website here, www.capcut.com. And this is where you'll find the web-based version of CapCut as well. Now, wish me luck, we're going live. I'm going to get out of this one for a second. Let me just change this one. All right, so everybody can see that screen still? No, I need to get out of that one. Give me a second. No, stop showing that. All right. Okay, can you see that web page? Yep, all good. So here we're on capcut.com, and you'll see down the bottom here you've got the edit video online, or you can download your version for PC. So this is where you can actually do your editing with CapCut online. So I won't log in for this one, but you can drag all your photos and videos into this section here. So the good thing about CapCut with the web-based editor is that if you've got a really old, slow computer, you can actually use this. You can drop all your files in there. It will take some time for all those photos to upload to the server, but then all the heavy duty, like all the heavy lifting is then done by the servers, not by your computer. So you can edit your 5.3K GoPro video on an absolute rubbish computer. So we'll get out of that. We're not going to spend any time on that one tonight, but that's where you can do it if you want to. And if we look at the very top of the web page here, you'll see there's a whole bunch of things. You've got tools, create, resources, and download. So you can download your for Windows there or for your mobile devices. And if I log into the account, okay, so here's where you can do a little bit more. It gives you a whole bunch of templates that you can use for your TikToks or whatever. It also has some magic tools there, so you can do an AI script, you can remove backgrounds. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with CapCut. So we're not going to go into all of that tonight. There's, go through it yourself, have a really good look through the website, have a play with it. It's like I said, it's a pretty easy tool to use, and there's lots of things you can do with it as well. So we'll get into the actual video editor itself. So here it is loaded up. I'll just go through some of the things. Now you'll see here on where I've got CapCut open, you'll see I've got spaces, and if you look here where I've logged in, you've got my workspaces over there as well. So like I said, once you've logged into an account on CapCut, you can carry those across the various platforms. At the top here, I've logged in. The one that we want to look at is the cog up the top here for settings. This is probably the most important bit to start with before you do any editing whatsoever. So if you click on settings, it'll come up with this page here, projects. So this is basically when I start putting all my photos and videos together, it creates what's called a project. So I'm saving this to a different drive, which is called my D drive. I put it on there because it's got a lot of storage room, and these files can take up a lot of storage space when you do these. I can have it all either set to the cache to be deleted or auto delete. Sorry, don't delete or auto delete. I leave it on auto delete because pretty much if I make a file, I've used it within 30 days anyway. We have somebody asking something there. No, all good. And at the moment you can see I've got a cache file of 1.19 gigabyte, and I can delete that if I'm running out of space on my computer. Next one across is for edit. So if I drop a photo in, obviously a photo is just one frame, but I can actually make it so that it automatically plays for 5 seconds, and I can adjust that up and down depending on what I want. I leave free layer ticked because that way I can arrange the files when I'm putting them on the timeline. Because my GoPro is set at 60 frames per second, my 60 frames per second fits perfectly on a 30 frames per second timeline, and I can slow it down by twice as much to fit the 30 frames and slow the video down. Time code I use is hours, minutes, and seconds because that's basically how we read our time. Performance, this is a very important one for you as well. So if you've got like a graphics card, a GPU, make sure that you tick this speed up the hardware encoding and speed up the hardware decoding. So that makes the video files play smoother. And also for your rendering there as well, make sure that's ticked so that your GPU or your graphics card is doing all the hard lifting. This is probably the most important thing for working on the video files, because if I'm shooting 5.3K, my computer cannot handle that. It just looks really, like you play it back and it's really, really jerky. So we make what's called a proxy file. So I tick that and I save that to my D drive as well. And what it does is it looks at each one of those video files that I put up onto the timeline, and then it reduces to a much smaller size, so I can actually play and edit to it. Makes it easy on my computer. But when I go to export, it doesn't use that proxy file. It goes to the original file and creates the video file for us. So once we made all those changes, we hit the save. Last one there is the English language button, but we're always going to leave that on English unless you want to speak Chinese, French, or whatever. All right. So next one, we can add a project in, which is going to be our next one here. This section here shows you all the projects I've been working on, and I'll open up a few of those in a minute. We can change the way they look as well. We hit this bar over to the top right there. You can leave it as a list, or you can change it to grid view, so you can get that there as well. I generally prefer the list view just because it gives me a bit more information. So if I hit the plus new project here, and this is the page that we get open for making our video. So pretty much all we need to do now is just hit import, and we can load up all our photos and videos. So I will get back out of this one, go back, we hit the menu key up on the top left, excuse me, the top left up here, and we'll go to back to home page, and we're back on this screen here. So here's one I've been working on today, just to show you a couple of things you can do within CapCut. So across the top here, we've got that menu bar again. So we've got the files, we can add in new projects, do some editing. Like if we've made an edit, we can go back and forth. I don't really ever use those. The only things I will ever use will be the back to the home page. At the very top to the right, you'll see one that looks like a whole bunch of frames, I guess. So if I click that, you'll see that you've got default layout, media first, player first, etc. So this is really good if you've got a dual monitor. I can actually have it so that, say I've got the player first, I can have one screen that just plays the video, and then the other section is just left. So this video part comes out, and then I'm just left with the editing side, and the other screen has the player side to it. So really handy if you've got a dual monitor. Shortcut one is really handy too if you want to learn the shortcuts for using CapCut. I use the shortcuts all the time because it makes it much quicker to edit. And then we have the export one. So once we made our video file, we can do the export. Okay, so you'll see here I've already imported a whole bunch of things. I've got a nice Gold Coast dive and snorkel theme there, and I've got all my videos that I want to add, and I can also add here the music. So I can add in my own music. Or I can go to the audio tab here as well, and CapCut has a whole bunch of its own music available. So not only does it have music, it also has sound. So if you want the sound of like birds chirping or water rushing or something like that, you can do that as well. And all you need to do is go up into the search bar there. Say you want, say, cinematic music. I can type cinematic, and it does a search for it. And there you'll see I can play some cinematic music. And if I hit the plus icon, it'll add that into the timeline below. And there you go. So I don't want that one playing, but that's how you would add music into it. You can do the sound effects one as well. So I can say wave, type in wave, microwave wave or wave. So like I said, this is such a great tool, considering it's free and you have all of this extras with the music and your sound effects that you can add for absolutely free. Is absolutely, to me, mind-blowing that you've got all this available to you. And you can also extract audio from something else. Like if you've got another video file, you can extract the audio from it. Or if you've got a TikTok account, you can log into that so you can get even more music. So we'll go back to the media tab here as well. So once I've imported all the files here, so this is my local drive. Then I've also got the library here, which is the own library from CapCut. So here you can see I can add in a black ending or a white ending here. So if I click on that, it adds a little black section here. So if I want to use like a blank page to start with to cut into the video, I can add that, or I can drop it to the very end to finish my video off with. And I use these all the time. I always use black to finish my videos off so I can fade off into black. And then we have all these other ones we can add in as well. So if we want to add in, let's load this one up. Doesn't want to do it, taking a while. Thought this might happen going live. Okay, so there we go. I can add that to the end if I wanted to. So I can drag that one to the end. Yeah. make it a bit bigger so I can grab it. And then when I go to the end, you've got that end button showing there. And just to show you how I zoomed in to the very far right over here, you'll see that you've got the minus button or the plus icon, so I can make that timeline smaller or longer. So if I need to do a fine edit, I can zoom into it and I can shorten it down so I can see all the timeline there. So we don't want that. If I click on it, I can just hit the delete and it removes it. And then you have a whole bunch of other ones that you can add in as well. So as I said, take your time to go through it and see what's available in that section. The next section we've got up here is the text. So I can just add in a default text. And if I click that, it's added a default text just in the end here. If I grab the end of it, I can actually make it longer. And up the top here, I can change the text there as well to Gold Coast Dive and Snorkel. Yeah. So, and then we've got a whole bunch of effects that we can add to that one as well. So, and we can grab that and move it to wherever we want. We can stretch it out. So a whole bunch of stuff you can do there. I'll get rid of that one. And if we go down further, we've got like effects. So then we can add an arty effect to our text. And then we've got text templates. So this is one that I use quite often, and I've loaded one up here. So if I play from the very beginning, I'll just bring the time bar back. Here we go. So that's just using one of those. So you can go through that and find something that you really like. And if I click on it, it's also editable as well. So I can type in there and I can change that to the best day with Gold Coast Dive and Snorkel. So you can edit all of these as well. So it's really, really handy. Now, one thing that will happen with these text boxes, I can stretch it out to make it longer if I want to. But you will see what happens here if I play through it. I'll make it a little bit shorter so it's quicker and easier for us to see. Okay, so it kind of it sort of fades in, but then also just completely cuts off. So I'll go back again to that one. So you can see that again. Okay, so you can see that it sort of dropped in, but then it just sort of cut out. So what I normally do with that, there's a couple of things you can do, because you can't actually do anything to that part itself. You can actually, if you right click on it, you'll see that you can create a compound clip. So if I make that a compound clip, now becomes something that I can edit. So what I will generally do is I will make a cut, say, let's just wait till all that. Okay, there it is, it's all faded in. If I make a cut, I can do that by using this key up the top here, or I can use Control B. I use Control B because I find it quicker. And now it's made a cut. If I click on that, I can right click and I can do copy, and I can do paste. Now what I can do is I can drop that to the end. Now, if I play it, it's still going to play through at the normal direction. So it's going to look a bit funny when I play it. I'll just move that so it's nice and close. So if I play that again, paint in, nice and smoothly. It goes the wrong direction. So we actually have a reverse button on this one. So if I hit reverse for that frame, I'll just make sure they're meeting each other so it doesn't have that gap in between. So now when I play it, fades in, plays through, So that's how I can create a really quick, like I guess, introduction title to it, and I can actually do some editing to it as well. And we can use those same tools for our video files as well. All right, so next section across, we have stickers. So I can add in, you know, like if you're a big YouTuber, you might want to go and click on this one for follow, so that you can add a link to that one. So as I said, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can add into this one. Not something that I would often use myself. Then you have effects. Effects is a bit like, you know, it'll add like lightning strikes and that sort of thing to it. For our underwater videos, it's not something I would ever use. The next one is something I always use. It's called the transition. So basically, if we've got a video file here, you can see that if I play this one and I play this one, so I'll bring the head to this point here. So you can see as it plays through, it's a very sharp cut. And what I can do is I can add in one of these transitions. So if I hit, make sure this one's highlighted, and I hit mix. Now it basically said that because this video hasn't been shortened, so it's adding extra frames to do this transition. I can actually pull on the handles on the side to make it longer, or I can actually just use the slider at the top here to make it longer or shorter. So if I want a nice long transition between the two, I can make it longer. You can see you get that transition. Now if I click on that one again, I can change it to other transitions as well. So another one I generally use will be a pull in. So if I play that, you can see it pulls in. Another one that looks pretty good sometimes is, where is it? I'm looking for a shake. You can see it there now. Oh, there is shake. I'll just click on that again, do shake. So you can see a whole bunch of those different transitions will, you know, help you between transitions between each video file that you've got. And oh, we've got a few questions there. Let me go to those first. Okay. Oh, somebody's got to go. Okay, Andy. Any other questions so far on this one? I know it's probably a bit long-winded, but these sort of things do take a bit of time. So, no, all good for that one. All right, so I'll just go into this one. So we can also add in photo files. So like we've got here, we've got Gold Coast Dive and Snorkel. Now what we can do with a photo file, and we can do it with anything actually. If I click on that, you can see at the moment when I move this around over here in this position, you'll see that it changes. So just say I wanted to go from here to here, I can add in what's called a keyframe. So I can set a keyframe for here. So you can see it's put that little dot there. If I stretch that out a little bit more and if I move the key head to there, I'll just go back one frame. And if I add another keyframe there, what I can do is I can slide that across to that point there, and you'll see those figures move. So if I play now, oh, sorry, I'm supposed to set that one at 0. All right, I didn't set that one before, so we'll set that. And we'll set that one to there. It should play, hopefully it does. No, for whatever reason, it's not working now. But yes, you can add keyframes into your slides there. So sorry about that. That should work. I'm not sure why that's not working for me now. Anyway, I'll move on, so we're not holding people up on this one. Now, what we can do is we can also add keyframes into our video. So I'll just bring the slide to there. And if I'm on adjustment, so now we've got a whole bunch of adjustments. So this is where we can do color correction to our video file here as well. So I can adjust temperature, our hue there as well, saturation, and we've got brightness, contrast, all that. I've already made a few adjustments here. And what we can do is, this section here is looking a little bit dark, so I can add a keyframe here. And if I select the very top, and that's now put a lock on all of those. And if I get to this point here, and I do another lock, and I can make it brighter to that point there. So if I play through, you'll see that as I'm moving that head, this is the way it's supposed to work. That brightness is going up and down on between those keyframes. And I can do that for color as well. So I can have that on that keyframe looking really blue, and on that second keyframe, I can change that to really yellow and really magenta looking, or green, so I can make it really different. So if you've got what I'm trying to demonstrate there, if you've got that a video where you've got the auto white balance and you get that shift between blue and green, you can actually add in those keyframes between those color shifts to compensate for that color shift. So that's one way we can actually help to edit the videos if we do have that color shift from using auto white balance. And in this section here as well, we can also do, so I'll just reset all of that. There is a little reset button you'll see up here, and that goes back there. So now all of those, they're all reset, and I'll just open up those shadows and things again. Now across the top here, we've got hue, saturation, and brightness. So I can have even more control over all the colors there. So I can adjust, let's have a look, we've got blue there. I can take the color out or make it brighter, so it's more saturated, or make it darker or make it brighter. And I can change the color as well. So I have even more control in hue, saturation, and lightness. And then we have curve, so I can actually add an own curve to it as well. So I can make it brighter, darker. I can do more in the highlights, or I can do more in the shadows. And I've even got control over each color channel there as well. So I'll just reset all of those. So that's how you can do some color correcting. That takes a while to get used to. It's something that you have to sort of spend a bit of time playing around with. So that's in the adjustment section there when you're on your video file. You can add in animations as well. So if I wanted to, especially like for my last frame, I will add, go on to the out section, I'll add a fade out. So, and I can extend, you'll see that to longer. So, you know, I'll just, if I drag that, I can actually shorten that there. So give me 2 seconds. I'll add it, that and I'll just play that. You can see, because I had a really long fade, it took a while to fade out. If I make it shorter, it fades out much quicker. So you can use these in and outs to add fades into your video file as well. So really handy for more for the end of your video, but you do have those. This is where you can adjust your speed of your video. So I've shot this at 60 frames per second, so I can slow it down to 50 or half speed. Generally, when I do that as well, I'll tick the voice box here as well. And now if I play it back, you'll see it plays much, much slower. Now, the sound of our audio in the background there is pretty loud. If I click on the sound file down the bottom here, which I've dragged in from my media tab, from my local drive, I'll drag that file and I'll drag that down there. I can adjust the volume of that as well. You can see at the moment you've got the red bar, so that means it's peaking too high. And if I drop it down just below the red, then we don't get too much distortion when it's playing. I can also add a fade in and a fade out to this one as well, so that if I go back to the music at the beginning, it fades in softly. So you have all these controls to adjust the volumes and all that sort of thing, so you can really make your videos and your photos look really good in your timeline here. All right, so we've looked at those. Next one we're going to look at is the audio side for the actual clip itself. So I can adjust the sound of that volume that's playing in the background. So if I make it really loud, it's going to be overpowering. And if I just want it to play as sort of more ambient sound while the song's playing, I can turn that down. And I can also add a fade in and fade out to the audio file on the sound clip. The other thing I can do with this as well, if I want to, is I can right click, and now I can actually separate the audio from the video as well. So sometimes what I do when I slow down the video, I will separate the audio, and then I can click on that, and you'll see if I hit on speed, because I've slowed down the video, it's now showing half the speed. So I can speed that back up to normal speed. So if I play it, it's I'll just stop that sound from playing for a second. And I'll turn it up a little bit louder as well. So now when I play it, the video is slowed down, but the sound's playing normal. So sometimes I do that when I'm doing my video edit, because I prefer the sound to sound more natural rather than slowed down. Okay, so that's a few things we've seen there now. And the last one is the video side. So we can scale the video in, make it zoom it in, and we can, if we've zoomed it in, we can also position it around too. And then we can also add keyframes. So if I want to start it there, and when I move it over here, you can see that it will now go back to normal. So if I play it, see that it's zooming in. Slowly. And if I add another keyframe back down here, I can basically make it normal again. So if I set that into a reset there, and I can add another keyframe, so it goes back to normal there. So yeah, keyframes is a really important thing when you're using the video section of this one. What else have we got here for you guys? So one thing that I do like to try and do when I'm shooting videos is to add in transition parts that I can add to the video as well. So here I've added some bubbles, and I can just drag and drop, so I can just use that part of the video that I want, and I can slow that down. So when I play it and I add in the transition, so I can get a nice transition from that bubbles and then into my next scene there as well. So it looks quite nice as far as playing the photos and videos. And I'm just looking for another file that I've uploaded here. Give me 2 seconds. Where are we? Oh, it's not there. Okay. I'll just go back out of this one. So another thing we can do is, where are we? Okay, the masking tool. So with this video file that we've got here, you can actually add a mask in as well. So you've got a whole bunch of creative tools here. So if I duplicate this this layer, so I can go copy, paste, layer that over the top. If I add a split to this one, I can now drag on this bar here, and you can see what's happening. I'll hide, there's a little eye icon here. I can hide that bottom layer. You can see when I drag it, it sort of gets a feather to it, and then I can drag this up and down, and I can angle it as well. So what I can do here is, because I've got the sun in the foreground, and I've got this, I guess the water in the foreground, I can now make it so that I can work on different layers here. So this top layer, I can now add in a bit of warmth if I wanted to, a bit of saturation, reduce the brightness down. And you can see that because I've been able to operate with that mask, I can add in that sort of layer there. So I can really make those colors pop when I've got that sort of half shot. I can use that that mask section that we've put in there. All right, I'll go back to that other video file. Yep. There we go. And yeah, sorry this is taking a bit of time. It's very hard to put all this together in one evening. But one other thing you can do, there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can do. We've also got the ability to, hang on, just give me 2 seconds. My computer's having a bit of a spaz, it's got all hot. So I'll just play the file itself for you. You can actually do a mask on yourself as well, so you can actually cut yourself out from the background. And what I can do there is layer up another video file behind me. So if I play this, well, I have to say that this Taliesin rechargeable selfie stick is very good. It's excellent for vlogging. I'm down here at Rainbow Beach today. We're heading down to Snapper Rock. We had a big cyclone come through yesterday. So there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do that. So you'll find that in the, where is it? It's in the cutout section. So you can do an auto cutout, and if there's a person in that, it will recognize that and automatically cut them out from the scene. And then all you need to do is just layer another video underneath that file, and you can get that sort of effect. Probably not something you're going to use for your underwater videos, but it's the sort of things you can do with this app. What else do we need to talk about here? So yeah, that's pretty much about it. The only thing I was going to show you is that when I'm doing a video edit, the last thing that I pretty much do is I'll go through a video file, I'll find the section that I want, and it's really easy to, I go, all right, I want to start from here. I'll hit the cut section up here, or I do Control B. So I do Control B there, move it along, go, all right, I want to finish there, do another Control B. So I've got that section there. I don't want that section there, so I can do Control B. I can then delete that section and go through. So using the Control B or the cut section, you can go through a whole, if you've got a really long video file, you can then go through and cut out sections and just leave the videos that you want. Then add your transitions. And the last thing I'll do before I guess complete my video is I'll choose my music to the sort of, I guess, suit the mood that I want to play. And then when I'm playing, I'll just get rid of the animation on that one. I'll just turn that off. Okay, so what I'll try and do when I've finally got a clip that I like, and I'll turn the music back on. All right, so you can hear there's a definite beat in the music there. So I'll play through the music. I'm going, all right, I want that section of the song, of the video. And I stop on the beat. And once I've hit the beat, that's when I'll go up to my transition and I'll find the one that I want to use. Generally, I'll use mix when I'm doing the underwater stuff. I generally extend the mix out to about at least 1 second, so I get a nice transition. And then when I play it, it does the transition on the mix for you. So that's probably about enough to show tonight. It's a way for you guys to get started with CapCut. There's, like I said, there's just way too much to show you tonight. And if you have any questions on it, feel free to give me a message. And I'll just get out of this one. I'll stop sharing so we can see each other. Okay, so yeah, so sorry that was taking a bit long. Does anybody have any questions on CapCut at all?
Yeah, Adam, once you've got your final product,
Yes.
where is it saving and
Oh,
how
yes, that's a very good question. So once you've done all your final edits, you've put your your text in and done your color correcting, all that sort of thing. Up the very top, you've got export. You'll see that there. It's the same thing, little box with an up arrow. Click on that, and that's where you can put in your title. You can save it to wherever you want, and then you can have the you do the resolution, so you can change it to what up to 4K. Your bit rate, I generally leave that as high. codec, I'll normally save it as HEVC, just like I do with my GoPro, format MP4. And as I said, I use a 30 frames per second timeline, so I leave that, but you can change that to 24, 25, 50, 60, whatever you're putting your timeline on. And then you just hit export, and it saves it to wherever you've got it, and then you can upload those files to YouTube, TikTok, whatever. So yeah. Any other questions on that one?
A quick question, Adam.
Yeah.
What you were just showing us then, is that the PC version? It's
Yes.
just that I run. Okay. Because when you said CapCut, I actually downloaded, because I run an iPad and a Mac.
Yep.
So, and I downloaded the one on the iPad, and it's just all rubbish.
If you go through it,
it was more like the created TikTok with all these different features.
yes,
Wasn't really what I was after.
it takes a little bit to go through it. Once you start going through all the tabs, once you've played with the PC version and the iPad or mobile version, you'll find that a lot of the tabs are very similar, and you'll get used to it. But it's much easier to edit on the PC version for sure. Yeah.
Okay, but there's not one for the Mac, you said, is there?
Not yet, no. But I believe they're working on it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that one? Any other questions from any of the other sections? So before you go, I'll just show you a quick one. So this first video, this was done with the GoPro Quick App.
I need to share your screen.
Oh, sorry. That helps, doesn't it? Okay, so you can see there that was using the GoPro Quick App. It does a very good job, as I said, of creating a nice video file, and it's pretty quick and easy to do it that way. And the next one is using CapCut. So this is the one where I get a little bit more control.
Welcome to the Blue Lagoon, located on the east coast of Bali, Indonesia, a hidden paradise beneath the surface of the crystal clear waters. As we dive in and begin our snorkeling adventure, we are greeted by a vibrant array of marine life and colorful coral reefs. First, we come across a variety of coral reef fish, swimming gracefully among the coral. Their bright hues of red, pink, and purple stand out against the backdrop of the coral, creating a mesmerizing display of color. We can see different types of fish like angelfish, parrotfish, and butterfly fish, each with their unique patterns and colors. Continuing our journey, we come across a beautiful sea turtle swimming gracefully through the water. These ancient creatures have been swimming the seas for more than 100 million years, and it is a truly humbling experience to witness one in its natural habitat. Scuba divers can also be seen exploring the depths of the lagoon, marveling at the beauty of the underwater world. As we come to the end of our snorkeling adventure, we are reminded of the importance of preserving these precious underwater worlds for future generations to enjoy. The Blue Lagoon in Bali is a true gem and a must-see destination for anyone interested in the natural beauty of our planet.
Okay, let me just stop there. Okay, so that was using CapCut. So you can see I had a lot more control of that. I had a lot more control of adding the volumes and the text overlays, color correction, all that sort of thing. A couple of things I also used on there in CapCut that I didn't go through is that you do have a video stabilizer as well. So if you've got shaky video, you can make it more smooth. You can also do like remove noise, all this sort of stuff in there as well. So CapCut's really quite powerful, especially considering it's free, you know. So yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much where you can go from hero to zero using those tools there. No, zero to hero, the other way around. Anyway, any questions there for you guys? Sorry it's taking a bit longer tonight. There's a fair bit to get through there.
No, that's great. Can you just hand over to me and I'll start to wrap up?
Sure.
So that just blew my mind away. So I'm going to have to go and replay all 4 modules and start actioning all that stuff. So I just want to say a very warm and sincere thank you from myself. I know how much work you put into it. It would have taken so many hours. So thank you very much. We've now got a library of 4 modules on Gold Coast Dive and Snorkel TV. So everyone will be able to, you'll be able to come back to it any time. So I just want to say thank you, Adam. Can everyone else, let's give him a round of applause there. Thank you. And if you've got any questions, please reach out to Adam directly. Adam's going to be seen out and about. He's going to be doing some of our whale and snorkel tours for us. He doesn't know about that yet. He'll be guiding a couple of those. So if you're lucky enough to get on that boat with him, then you'll get some even more tuition. So thanks very much, everybody.
Actually, before you go.